So I wanted to talk briefly, and I say briefly only because I want this to get as much circulation as possible. So shorter videos help that. And it's about depression. Whether we've been diagnosed officially or whether we recognize it or not, all humans go through bouts of depression to various degrees. But now, obviously, in the last year, I would say that number has just blown up globally, with good reason, with this lockdown. And people are slipping into deep depression. So as somebody who, for the first time in my life, the year before the lockdown, I slipped into a deep depression like never before. I had bouts like everybody else throughout my life, but through my own practices and spiritual practices and self-inquiry practices and self-love practices, I was able to rise above it, for lack of a better way to say that, or survive it, if you will. But with loss after loss of loved ones, I did slip into a deep year-long depression that was just crippling. And I did reach out to a few people that were left in my circle after losing almost the entire circle. I reached out to a few friends and siblings, and unfortunately for emotional support, and I got the opposite. As many know who go through depression, instead I got judgment, no help. So I had to do it on my own, and it was tough. So, and ironically enough, after great effort, after a year, month after month of just trying so hard to pull myself out, I finally did. And ironically, that month was January, and then late January, and then February, boom, we had the big lockdown. So I've been much better since, but of course I've had small bouts, because we all have, with this ridiculous lockdown and the fear that's being spread, both by the system and by so many people now. The masses are spreading fear as well, and they're lashing out at anybody who thinks differently or speaks out against it. So relationships are falling apart, and a lot's happening. And of course, those are slipping into depression. Some are getting help, but some are not. Some are just being judged by those people. So it's a real tough time. It's a real tough time for us. And the reason I'm making this video is because a few people have reached out recently who are really going through deep depression, and I've seen that increasing online. So I wanted to speak to it as someone who has pulled himself out of it for the most part. And I still have little bouts, but certainly not like before, not a year-long crippling depression. So I'm just going to quickly talk about basically the symptoms and then some of the things you can do. So often the symptoms, which, if you're depression, you don't really need to be told this, but just so we're on the same page. When you're deep in depression, it's crippling. It can paralyze you. You start losing the motivation to do anything, the simplest of things. You don't want to, go to work, get a job, complete, your missions or your dreams you had planned, all those things. Forget it. Getting out of bed, just taking a shower can be like trying to climb a mountain. You just don't want to do anything. And the mind will have bouts of spinning, which makes it worse. And then when you're in deep depression, then it can go quiet, but it's not in a good way, and then you're just kind of in a numb, lost state. And it affects everything in your life. And it's tough. It's really tough. And people that haven't been in it really don't know. And obviously some of them have trouble finding compassion for those. And suicidal thoughts is another symptom, obviously, that can come with some individuals. And again, when you try to express that to other people, often they get afraid when they hear that, and instead of helping you, they will accuse you of guilting them or making them feel bad, but it's their own fearful reaction. So instead of giving empathy and trying to help those with depression or suicide, they don't. They make them feel worse, and they turn their back on them a lot of times. Luckily, there are lots of angels that don't as well, so remember that. There's always angels out there. You're never really alone. So when you're in this state, there is no cure. I would say the first thing please don't do is don't go to doctors and let them put you on meds. It's a Band-Aid. It's been accepted and should never have been accepted, and it may temporarily help you, get you through a few days, but most of them, the antidepressant stuff, they're addictive. They come with their own side effects, and you're not solving anything. So what you want is to work towards your own healing, to pull yourself out so you have a good chance. Otherwise, you just end up dependent on chemicals. And then the doctors have to keep changing the chemicals to see what works, and it's just a mess. So there are some exceptions where some people have certain conditions where there's just no other choice. I accept that may be a possibility, but in most cases you do have a choice. So stay away from the psychiatrists and the drugs and all that stuff. Self-healing and self-care is the key. So it's really quite simple what you can do, but it takes time, and it's hit and miss, and it's not going to change things overnight, but it'll slowly make you feel better. So before I give you a few tips of what you can do, think of it as this. When trying to pull yourself out of depression is literally like trying to pull yourself when you're deep up to your knees in thick mud. You know, when you see people in those flood regions where they're literally stuck in the mud. I mean, they need people to pull them out. They can barely, they might get 1 foot out and then it just gets sucked back in. That's what depression, when you're deep in it, especially as time goes on, it's like trying to pull yourself out of mud. And the only way to do it is one step at a time. That's it. Just one day at a time, 1 moment at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 moment at a time, like I said. That's the only way. And be patient with yourself and love yourself and care for yourself. And the fact that if you keep doing that daily and doing things to try to do that, that is a form of self-love. So eventually that alone, that act will help you. It will. But you do have to be patient with it, and you will slip backwards a bit and you will get stuck again. But it's just keep at it. Keep at it. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. And eventually you will get out and you can shake that mud off. So what are some of the tips? Anything that's self-care. So anything that you love, that makes you, relaxes you, or fulfills you. Yes, you'll have to force yourself. That's part of the, because you won't even want to do that. So so those are things that can really help you. But before you can even do that, it's best to start with the smallest things. So just things like force yourself to take a shower. And while you're there, if you love baths, have a long bath. Soak. Go out, fresh air. You don't want to go outside, you're not going to want to, but it's important. Go get fresh air. Stay away from toxic things and toxic foods. Don't watch violent, negative movies, especially all these violent horror movies and stuff and depressing dramas. No, that's not what you need. Watch uplifting stuff if you're going to do that. Same with, so only healthy stuff in here and only healthy stuff in your body. So when you're in depression, yeah, you're going to want to soothe yourself with certain comfort foods, but try to make them as healthy as possible and stay away from the junk, because that will just make you more depressed. Booze and drugs especially, stay away from them. Booze is a depressant. Most drugs are depressants. Weed can be a great thing, but when you're in depression, it isn't, because all weed does is enhance what you already are. So if you're in a great mood, whatever, feeling creative, then yeah, it's going to make you more of that. If you feel like having a good time, then yeah, you start having laughing fits and you have a good time. But if you're depressed, it's going to make it worse. So unfortunately, weed is not going to help you. And definitely no booze, definitely no caffeine, because caffeine makes you go up and down, and you don't need up and down when you're depressed. You got enough to deal with. You don't need to be up and down. So narcotics and drugs and those kind of things, stay away from them. And toxic food, especially starchy things. Eat high quality bread if you're going to eat breads and pastas. Not the cheap stuff that's made with all-purpose flour, because actually all-purpose flour isn't really flour. The real wheat components have been removed, and it's actually starch. And starch is actually sugar. It gets, because the body converts it into a form of sugar. So when you buy like Wonder Bread, that's not really bread. That's a bag of starch, which is really a bag of sugar. So if you're going to eat those kind of starchy foods, eat high quality organic if you can, but at least, if not organic, at least that says has lots of grains and real wheat in it. Not the cheap stuff. Stay away from junk food. It's not going to make you feel better. Totally reduce your sugar. It's not going to make you feel good. Fats, salt, limit them. If you need comfort food, make wholesome comfort food and do it that way. Feed the body nutrients, so that, because if you start bombarding your body with natural, raw, organic food, or at least organic food and fruits and vegetables, then that will help you slowly. So eat that every day. Go take those walks. Get fresh air. Listen to positive music. Watch positive things in TV and movies. It's not going to change things overnight, but again, it's slowly, one foot. By doing those things, cleaning your house. I mean, obviously the last thing you want to do is clean or do things, chores, but that can also be a self-care. When you're taking care of your environment, that is a form of self-love, and you will actually feel better at the end of it. You may, it's like pulling teeth to get yourself to do it, but you will feel better after you accomplish those little tasks. Because even accomplishing little tasks will help you feel better about yourself. So when you've put off laundry for a month, getting all the laundry done in 2 days, it's going to make you feel a little bit better. Cleaning your environment is going to make you feel a little bit better. Again, it's not a quick cure. None of this is. It's just one step at a time. Unstuck. And just be good to yourself, and especially with thoughts. Don't berate and don't try to avoid circular thought, and stop yourself from having circular, especially negative thought, and nothing that berates yourself. You need to be your own best friend. You need to be your own cheerleader to get out of this. You need to tell yourself, I'm going to get out of this. Slowly but surely, I'm going to pull myself out of this. And if you have certain motivations of why you'd want to, then remind yourself of those motivations, be it your kids or traveling to another country or fulfilling one of your dreams, whatever it is. So one step at a time. And if there's people around you that are toxic or that aren't helpful and just make you feel like shit, then you just take space from them. And instead, if you're going to seek out people, seek people that want to help or that understand or that have been in depression. If you don't have those kind of people, feel free to message me on Messenger, and I'll certainly be an empathetic ear as someone who's been through it. So baby steps, be good to yourself. You can get out of it. It can be done. Do it naturally. Heal yourself naturally. You have all the powers and tools to heal yourself naturally. And to be honest, with the way the world is going, the system isn't going to let up. They're going to continue to try to strip our rights. They're going to continue to do these ridiculous lockdowns based on nothing. They're going to instill fear in the masses and take away your freedoms for the illusion of being safe. They're going to continue this. So we need to be at our best to just rise above that. So you do need to, as soon as you can, start the process of healing so that when tougher times come, and they are going to come, we can rise above it. But when you're in depression, you're very vulnerable. So it is key. We need you to as a whole, we need you to be good to yourself so you can join us in changing things here on Planet Ocean. To do that, we have to first change ourselves within, And then when the challenges come at us, we can stand together and rise above them. But the first thing is to pull yourself out of that mud, and you can do it. Trust me, you can do it. I've been there.